Hey everyone, welcome back. Another video from me. This one I'm going to be making a slab hand built vessel, and I'm going to show you how I went from this to this. Nicely transitioned there. I'm really happy with it, but let's get cracking. Before I start to go on, I wanted to talk a bit about patience, and when it comes to working with clay, especially hand built clay that you've rolled out, as you can see I've done here. Working with it, you have to be patient. It's not one of those things where you're on the throwing wheel and you throw clay and it's just done within a few minutes or however efficient you are. With hand building, it takes a lot of time. Once you've rolled out the clay, you have to wait for it to be just the right kind of hardness for you to kind of work with. And there's a lot more process that comes into doing hand building with this method. And I'll kind of go through some of that method later on in the video, because I kind of go through it multiple times. As you can see, there's loads of joints and things like that I'll have to go through to make the vessel that I'm trying to make. But yeah, one of the things that came to mind is around when I was making this is around patience. And when I was working on this, I think it was last weekend or even before that, it takes a lot of patience to do hand building. You've rolled out the clay, you need to let it get to the right consistency to kind of build it up. And what I found is that I was incredibly patient with it. I just felt, oh yeah, this is what it is. This is what this is the kind of boundaries that I have to work with, and I can just kind of get on with it. If I have to wait a day, and there was one moment where I was waiting ages, and I dealt with that in a certain way, which you'll see in this video later on. But being patient was really important, because while I was patient with doing all this stuff, I'm actually at my mum's at the moment. I'll be here for the next 2 months more or less. She had a foot operation, and I feel I get really impatient with her, because not because I want her to do anything, but it's because she can't stop wanting to do things. The first few weeks, she's literally just supposed to have her leg up, elevated, and just rest, and she is really impatient with that, and that obviously bleeds over to me, and then I have to deal with it, and then I get really upset, and we kind of have a little bit of a tiff where I'm just look, just leave it, let me get on with it, let me do it, you don't have to do it, you just have to put your feet up. But the simplest thing, she will just want to get up and start doing things, and it's just no, I need you to just rest. You can do all that stuff once your foot is feeling better. And it's just difficult that I was having to kind of deal with that, I guess, that difference of being patient in one way with this clay, but then being really kind of impatient, and my mum being impatient in her own way with what she's going through. So it's just different. It's just interesting that sometimes, I guess what it brought up for me is that with the clay, you understand that it has a limit. There's nothing that the clay can do about it. But I guess we're dealing with my mum, or when you're dealing with someone else, there is a potential for them to do things differently, and because of that reason, you completely forget about what their nature is like and what they're used to. My mum's incredibly independent, so for her to have someone here taking care of her and doing everything for her, she is not used to, and I need to accept that, as opposed to kind of imposing what I think that she needs to do, even though I may feel that I'm right in this situation, because she's just had a surgery, so she needs to just rest. But part of me just kind of doesn't want to accept the fact that it's difficult for her, and she is having to be really patient with recovery and things like that. She's just not used to it. She's gone through a similar operation a couple of years ago, and even these last few years she's had if this was her third surgery since COVID. And every year since COVID, she has had some kind of massive recovery to deal with. Last year, she fractured her shoulder and was out of work for ages and all this stuff. So that was just something that I was thinking about when I was making and editing this video. There you go. But just quickly, while we're on this, you can see that from this joint, you get a little bit of a roll of clay and you kind of push it up against the gap when you're putting two slabs together, and you basically just press it down. You use a bit of water around it, and you basically just use the bean, the serrated bean tool to just kind of scrape it and serrate it. And then you just like use another side of the bean to just kind of like flatten it out. Then what I use is the sponge to kind of just get a bit more moisture into it, and then again that process of, you know, flatten it out and then just pushing up against it. So what I did is that I was getting a little bit impatient, just a little bit. So I put this in an oven for a bit, just like really light. What I did is I put the oven on for a few minutes and then I turned it off and I put this in for like 10. And you can see that as I've lifted it up, it doesn't flop on either side, and that was proof to me that it was actually ready to kind of work with, at least until that point. Just kind of working down the sides and just taking a bit, making sure that it's even with this cheese grater or grater type material. You know, put a bit of grog on, serrate the edges, put a bit of grog on, and then you serrate the other side of the piece that you're attaching, and then you basically just push up against the other piece, the other slab, and you basically need to like jiggle it. You need to give it a bit of a jiggle, give it a bit of a wiggle, and that just kind of blends the grog with the actual serrated joint, and it pushes it together. Well, you don't want it to be loose, you want it to be fitted together, so you're just kind of pushing it against it. And then once that's done, you get your little rolls to kind of join up the edge, which is what I'm doing now, just rolling up it, pressing up against it, and then you're using your other tools to literally just wedge that little bit of clay into that gap, or whatever gap is remaining there. And then what you can do is just kind of like tidy that all up using liquid, using like your tools to just kind of push up the clay into that space, and then you're able to make it a bit more neat. Sometimes this process is relatively easy, sometimes it can be a bit more tricky, but you need to kind of look at the clay and make a judgment, you know, if you need to kind of do more of those rolls and press up against there and then work it in and follow that same process, or you can just go from there. I made the decision that it was okay, so I just worked it on, used the serrated bit, and then I'm just flattening it out here like you can see. And as you're doing it, you're just making sure that it's, you know, remaining tidy. You can see that I've got the plastic there that's covering part of the clay, and that's another thing that you need to look out for when you're doing slab work or any kind of clay work where it's exposed to the air for any kind of extended period. You need to make sure that you've given that it's kind of got enough moisture where it doesn't harden up beyond leather hard, but just enough that it actually maintains a little bit of that toughness, that leveriness. Because you'll see in a minute that I actually make this vertical and start working through it. And at the moment, this piece hasn't got a front to it. It's literally just got the back, the bottom, and two of the sides, as you'll see in a minute. So yeah, you just use a brush, use a bit of the grog to just kind of press it between any of the gaps that you've created there, and then you're kind of pushing up against it. You see that it hasn't got a top. And when you're obviously moving it around like this, you need to be kind of careful. And you can see that even though I did that top bit, it's still not neat enough, and I'm going to have to do it again. I think at this point I'd actually taken it off, had to do some other stuff at the front, and then redid it, basically. Yep, there you go. Either that or I kind of edited the clips the wrong way around. Yeah, I'll go with the first one. I redid it. Yes, that's what's happened. So yeah, any kind of tool you can to just basically just kind of press into that gap is useful. You know, if you're like me, there are like, I've got loads of like clay tools. I've got a whole toolbox of them, but there's like maybe 4 or 5 which are my go-to. One of them is this serrated bean, egg, kidney bean. That's the word I was looking for. It's the kidney bean. And then I've got another kidney bean tool which is flat, and I'm just using that to kind of tidy it up and press it in, and you know, get rid of the serrated marks. So you can see it has, like I said before, it hasn't got any front, and again I'm just tidying up, putting a bit of moisture in it through the sponge tool, just to kind of make sure that it's just got enough that it doesn't start to go beyond ever hard, but enough that I can kind of, it can maintain the vertical, the way I've put it up. And there you go, that's what it looks like. But let's get on with some other things. Don't forget to tidy up your space. That's one of the things you gotta do. So this is where the patience came in, actually, because this was a fresh bit of clay. Those other pieces of clay that I used to get to this point, I'd already rolled them out a few weeks ago, and I had them covered up. I live in Wales, so I had them rolled out in this class that I'm in Wales. So this one was a fresh piece, so I didn't show it in this video, but I had to wait for like a day, more or less, the better part of the daytime, not the day, the daytime, to let it kind of dry enough so I can actually use it. But then I used the method of actually putting the rest of the actual clay piece on it and then cutting around it. But even though I let it just kind of dry out, not putting it in the oven or anything like that, you'll see in a bit that I actually needed to kind of, once I attached it, I still needed to, you know, do some work to kind of flatten it out, because it started to buckle a little bit at the front. So there's a way that I'll show you shortly that I was able to kind of sort that out. But what I'm doing here is just kind of going through the clay, because most of it has been made, and now it's just like you're kind of refining what it looks like and making sure that it's even and things like that. And I noticed things on the base which I wasn't happy with, so I thought I'll just kind of tidy them up a little bit, which is what I'm doing here. Either that, or I just probably forgot to do what I was supposed to do with it in the first place. This little tool here is another one of those tools which I absolutely love, and it's like a wooden wedge, and it came from, I don't know what they use it for, maybe I do, but I just can't remember, but it came from like a frame, like a picture frame, like a canvas, and I don't know what it's for. I think it's to actually make the canvas, and there was like 4 of them that came with this canvas that I bought ages ago. And I thought, let me see if that works as a kind of clay tool, and it did. It was really good. So this is just a bit of a time lapse of me like sorting out the top, and I was actually really happy with the way this bit turned out. Even though while I was doing it, I was getting really kind of frantic, like it's not getting to the place I want it to. But sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you have an idea in your head, and then when you're doing it, it's like, oh God, it's not really working out the way I want it to. So going back to that point where I mentioned before about it buckling, that last piece of clay that I put on, it started to buckle a little bit at the front, so I needed to kind of like flatten it out, which is what I'm doing. And then naturally I can kind of just put a little bit of moisture on the 3 other sides to make sure that they don't over hard, and the other one will continue to just harden. So I'm just using a big spoon here to just flatten it out a little bit. And that bit I said before about just kind of keeping the other sides moist enough so it doesn't get over hard, because I wanted to kind of decorate and do some patterns in the front as well. And this is also just part of like tidying it up as well, making sure that the sides are smooth. And I find like the dampening the sponge is a really good way of doing that. So I'm using these kind of chopstick style piece of dowel here to just kind of make some indentations in it, which is kind of one of my styles. I've shown in another video, and I'll probably show it a lot more in future videos. Come on, get my words right, come on. But with this, I'm just using the serrated edge to kind of make a little bit of a pattern in there. And again, this is one of my signature things that I like doing. It's not my signature. I'm saying it as if I'm some great sculptor. I mean, I am, but like not yet. You know, and the world needs to see it first. The world needs to see it. Using the scalpel tool as well, which is one of my go-tos. I've had like not great remarks about me using it, because obviously the potential is that you kind of cut a bit too deep when you're using it, but I'm used to that tool. And again, this is that wedge tool from I'm going to call it the canvas wedge tool. I'll think of a better name than that at some point, I'm sure. I'll maybe call it, or maybe give it a name like Bernard, I don't know, the Bernard tool. So the Bernard tool is what I'm using here, and I love doing it because it makes, you know, this kind of indentation where it's kind of angled more on one side but straight on the other, again, is one of my sculpture signatures. Sorry, the light's not great on this bit, but you can kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to do here. And that's a bit of a hello from my samurai friend on the windowsill there. I've had that statue since like 2004 or 5 when I went to China. I got it from China. So this is what it looks like. So I had run out of footage there, and I wanted to just kind of end the video, but I thought, no, let me do it justice. I'm really happy with this piece. There you go, this is what it looks like. I actually have run out of footage. Okay, peace, see you later.